Well, welcome to What's Broken. Today there's nothing broken. There's just something new new to me that I purchased yesterday. It's, I think it's February 9th, and I got this yesterday, so it's still kind of wintry out. I did take it for a little bit of a rip yesterday, and it was fun. It's a Synergy Kahuna. It's got a 750 watt motor on the back, 14 amp hour battery, so it's rated somewhere around 30 miles, 50 kilometers for distance. I guess we'll see. So the backstory on it is the parents bought it for the son. He put 37 kilometers on it. 3 months later he turned 16, so they bought him a car. So I got a rather smoking deal on it. Anyhow, along with it, it also came with, you can get these out of the bag, came with the front and rear fenders. Apparently on the website these are like $70. I just don't see $70 there, but then he also threw in a box of some different reflectors and what else? A couple of little wrenches, reflectors, some nuts and bolts, and some Allen keys or Allen wrenches. So I'm going to get the fenders mounted on it. And I just sort of want to check over all the nuts and bolts and any adjustments, make sure everything's tight and set up and all that good stuff, and then maybe take it out for a little ride in the back alley. Okay, let me get you set up in a stand and we'll see where this goes. One of the things I saw online was that this kickstand is adjustable. There's a set screw on the back. Okay. Maybe take it out about an inch. Yeah, that makes it a little more stable. Before it leaned just a little bit too much, and it was right at the tipping point. Next, I think I'll install a rear fender. Didn't really come with any instructions, but it's somewhat self-explanatory. That looks about centered. Yeah, that works. It's got the upper and lower mounts for a, I think they call it a pannier rack. I call it saddlebags. But to buy the rack, I think is $160 or $180. So I do believe that I'll probably just build one. Not overly concerned about weight, because I'm just going to use this to buzz around, pick up groceries, go see the odd friend, maybe do a little sightseeing. But I don't think what I build will need to be as light as an aluminum 160 or more dollars rack. Anyhow, I'm going to go around and mount the front fender now, and maybe the reflector. Looks like this one's a little heavier duty than the back one. Let's get the fender out of the way. Little lock nut on the end of this Allen bolt. 10 mil, I believe, or maybe a 3/8. I suspect this would be metric, being from China. I'm going to put a fender washer on here as well. Just for a little added oomph. That should work. Well, those fenders should help keep some of the mud and wet down. It came with this little cell phone holder. Not super high end, but it was loose, and when I wiggled it, this little chunk of rubber fell out from behind. So I think what I'll do is wrap this with some black friction tape. To tighten it up, it would have to be right up tight to the center of the handlebar, but this is tapered, so I suspect it will eventually work its way off. I was out ice fishing a few days ago with a couple old buddies, and both of them have these e-bikes, different brands or whatever, but it sounded like a good idea. So I looked at new ones and the price, and then I looked at in Kijiji and found this one for considerable savings. That feels like it might be thick enough to hold it in place now. Yeah, that should work. Yeah, seems to hold it fairly solid. Did a little modification to the cell phone holder off camera. I wasn't overly confident that, you know, a $600 or $700 or $800 cell phone should rely on a little piece of plastic like that. So I just got some of that copper, I don't know, copper pipe tie, rounded the ends, filed them up so there's no sharp edges, and it works well. But I also thought, just to be sure, I want to put a layer of epoxy to hold everything together, because these screws, they just go into plastic. So again, I don't have full confidence that, see, that one's stripped out already. And this one's almost stripped out. So really I want to put a little bit of epoxy on these contact points, and then a little bit more between this stuff. What do I got here? 1, 2, 3 holes, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom. Worked out pretty much perfect as far as I'll just show you once I can get this one little screw out. The one hole fits over that post nicely, and the other hole is open for that top bolt, so it's pretty much made to fit. Just going to mix up a little bit of JB weld. Won't need much. And that's going to fit on. Just like so. I think I'll smear up the back side of this too. Just don't want to be bouncing down a trail somewhere and have that strap break and have the phone come loose. One thing about it, this won't be coming apart again. I'll let that set overnight, and then I can bolt it back on the handlebars. And just going to pop the cell phone holder back on. I think I'd mentioned earlier I wrapped this handlebar with black friction tape, because without it, no matter how much you tighten up the cell phone clamp, the plastic one, it's still fairly loose. I think if you have it right near the center it might work, but it could slip off. So with the tape it allows a little bit of flexibility in where to put it. Just get the nut and washer on. There we go. Works good with that copper strap. It's good and solid, and with it being epoxied I don't have to worry about this part breaking. I just have to worry about if I knock the phone out of the holder. Let me just fire it up here for a second. That looks to be a pretty good little light on the front. I just suspended it off the ground. Put the key in. I want to just figure out how this battery, so that's the key out, that's on, and then all the way this way releases a battery button. Let's see how hard it is to, I have to release the button on the side. There we go. Then pull the key out. Okay. It's fairly straightforward. When I turn it, it locks the battery into place, so even if somebody splits this, they can't steal the battery. Although there's probably somebody out there that's figured that out. Anyhow, it'll keep the honest people out. And to close it up, this has a little spring-loaded lock, so keeps everything from coming apart. So in order to do some tweaking and tuning or modifications to this, I want to build a little stand, and to do that I got this chunk of pipe left from another project, and it fits up the seat tube. I just want to find kind of make a rough mark here. Just going to weld a little, flatten this end out and weld a little T-bar to it, just so it has a bit of a support. And then usually when I take the back tire off, it'll weight forward or vice versa, so just make a pretty simple affair. The bottom I think I'll just flatten out. Yeah, so it's flattened out. Got a chunk of angle iron here. We'll cut that off. Just weld it up. Then put a little stopper at about 2 5/8 where it sits up in the tube, and that should do it. Yeah, it's pretty square. Made a couple of chalk marks where I want to center it. Just give it a couple of tacks and then double check it. Well, that looks pretty true. Watch your eyes. That should work, and now I'm just going to weld a couple of bars at the proper height. Maybe keep the back tire about 1 inch off the ground. So with the bottom sitting on the ground and this up inside the seat tube, the mark's right about there, so I bent up a couple little 1/4 inch rods. I'm just going to weld them maybe 1 inch higher, just to keep the bike off the ground enough to spin the tires. Get that one tacked in place. And then do the other side. eyeball this one up. It's pretty close. And there you have it. Pretty simple little stand just to keep the, well, bet I melted this plastic cap. Oh well. Simple little stand to keep the tires off the ground, the front or the back, depending on which one you're working on. So I popped the bike up on the bench. And I'll just show you, under here is the bottom of the seat tube. So that's where I'm going to slip the stand into. And we'll see if I can do this without hurting myself or dropping the bike or otherwise. Well, that should work. Yeah, it leaves me about 3/4 of an inch underneath the back tire, so I'll just strap it down and commence taking apart the back end. These are 18 mil bolts. So first off, I think I'll want to unplug the power going to the back, the rear wheel. Now I can get this nut loose. Oh, there, so it dropped out. Never had one of these apart before, so if you have and you're watching me, I'm open to comments. I think I might put a block under that stand and give myself another 3 or so inches. Yeah, add another 3.5 inches or so underneath there with a block. Oh, there we go. Careful not to damage too much. And the back tire is free. I don't know how well it'll show up, but one of the things I want to figure out is the tire's sitting out around and the bead is almost popped. If you look at sort of the design line, the bead is almost popped out at this one point. Then on the opposing side, that line seems fairly consistent all the way around. So I don't know if this is made out of round, if it's a flaw in the tire. Might be a little tighter up here. So yeah, I just want to play with this and try to get it to sit in there a little better and not be out of round. So I let the air out of the tire. I'm just having a look here at the edge of it. It all looks consistent. So I think I'll maybe try to put some air back in, and I'll hold this section in that was out and see if it pops out somewhere else. I'll just lightly clamp a good old vice grip to it. Might be easier from underneath. From what I can remember when I was a lot younger, I thought tires fit the rims a lot better. Let's look at a little more even. See what the other side looks like. Yeah, it's not. Over here there's more of this little line showing than here. There's less here, more here. I'm wondering how much attention they pay to manufacturing specs. It shouldn't be this hard to do. Anyhow, I'm gonna shut the camera off and play with this for a while because there might be some cussing involved. Okay, I'll see you when I bring you back. So I got the tire back on the bike, and how I sort of centered it was I've only got maybe, I don't know, a couple pounds pressure. So with very little air in it, I just sort of kept working the edge by squeezing it. And I think it's probably within about 1/8 of an inch. Right here is a little bit farther out than the rest of it. So I'll play with it a little bit and hopefully get it tuned straight up. And then it's on to building a bicycle or a rear rack so I can mount the saddlebags. For the frame of the rear rack, I've got a bunch of this 1/4-inch rod left over from another project. Let's say the bottom of the so the length of the rack has to be at least 14 inches. We'll make it 5 3/8 wide. So 14 comes to there, give or take. I'll maybe make it 15. And 5 1/4. So this top set of mounts is 6 1/4. Bottom set are about 8 3/4 outside, or 7 ID inside. I just found some different tabs that I had laying in my bin, and I'll weld the 1/4 inch to these and finish the frame off that way. Now I'll just start building it and figure it out as I go. Don't want to think about these things too much. 15 and 15's 30, and 2 times 5 1/4 is 10 1/2, so I need at least 40 and 1/2 inches. This piece is 42, pick 21 as a center, and 1/2 of 5 1/4 is 2 5/8. That's going to be the outside. Give it a couple of smacks. Should be roughly 1/4 inch up from the top of the vise. It's pretty close. And try and get this relatively parallel. See how close that came out. Yeah, just a schnick over 5 1/4. Perfect. And now I want 15 for length overall. I'll square this up after. So that came out to 15 1/8. Then I'll bend this one over and cut them appropriately so I still have 5 1/4 OD. Now let's see how this works. Got to spread out just a hair. Might have to sort of secure these with a vice grip to keep them from wobbling. Well, that's one. Just move the vice grip to the other side. Going to take a minute and hammer these so they're a little straighter. The width of the rack is 5 1/4 OD and the width of the mounts are 6 1/4 OD. I want to bring these over just a hair more than 1/2 inch and then I'll weld them on the bottom side of the rack in the center. Pretty darn close. The idea being is that this is the inside of the mount and this will weld to the rack, so it should come in pretty close so that the width in between these is 6 1/4. So these are both spaced back about 7/8 of an inch from the end. The side is running parallel with the metal plate. This is clamped in at 6 1/4 inches wide ID. So in theory I should be able to tack these up and see if it fits. Let that cool off for a minute and then we'll test fit it. Yeah, it might just work. I should have dabbed these up before with copper coat because aluminum and stainless don't really like each other. I buzz these out at high speed with this little nut driver, and that can gall the threads pretty easily. The two rear supports are just going to be 1/4 inch rod, and I had a couple of these galvanized brackets, I think off a bed frame. Cut them off, measured down 2 inches, so I'm just going to put some tacks to hold these on, and then we'll screw them into place. Maybe bend the ends a bit because they're going to be contoured just in order to get a, say, a 1-inch weld along the saddlebag frame. And if you're welding this galvanized stuff, you don't want to breathe in the fumes because you can get zinc poisoning. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's not fun. Just cranked open the door to let some bit of a breeze through here. Just helps it to weld easier. I'm going to put a bit of a bend in these. Yeah, with a little bend, I'll clamp this with vice grips, and that should hold it. Yeah, that should work. I think that'll work just fine. I'll pop this all apart and get it up on the bench and ready for welding. Then I'll cut a couple of support pieces for right in here. I'm just deciding whether or not to powder coat them. My brother's got a powder coating set up out of the shop, or just spray them with bed liner. I might go for the easier one. Not sure if I lost some footage here. I just looked at the camera and it was off. So I'll go over it again. I replaced these ears with some taller ones so there's a little more space between the rack and the fender. And I don't know if I lost the footage, but I just finished tacking up sort of the grill that the saddlebags, the Velcro will strap to, and just provide a little more support. So I'm going to let it cool while it's all clamped and weighted down, and once it's cooled then I'll flip it over and tack weld the top. Darn, the camera shut off again. Might be time to buy a new one. Anyway, I got the tops of these just finished tack welding all of them. They're still nice and hot. Then I'm going to put a new flapper disc on the mini grinder and go around and shine everything up. And I had thought about powder coating this, but I've never powder coated before and it would be very time consuming. So I was at Princess Auto this morning and picked up some good old Rust-Oleum truck bed coating. Stuff seems to be fairly bulletproof, so I think that's what I'll coat it with once I get it all buffed up and sanded out and clean. So I'm just going to use a 80 grit flapper disc on this little mini grinder and start shining things up. I'll spare you all the noise and bring you back when it's done. So it's all cleaned up and wiped down with acetone. Knocked off all the weld spatter and sort of smoothed things out as good as I could. It's about 10 degrees Celsius in the garage. Got a little heater going on it. So I'm just gonna coat it with the bed spray. Nice thing about this stuff is it's very forgiving. So for a hack like myself, works well. Now for the tourist side. That's the side people see. That should get it. Let that dry overnight and then I'll bolt it on the bike. Well, the bed liner paint's all dry, so I'm just going to install this. Get it ready for the saddlebags. Hopefully it was the right idea to put these bottom mounts on the inside instead of the outside. I can always modify it if I have to. There, all the bolts are in. Just tighten them up. Our bolts are all tight. See how hard it is to install the saddlebags. That seemed to work pretty well. I think that should be okay. The saddlebags came with these plastic inserts. They were just sort of folded over like that. But I think I want to put a sharper bend in. It's about, say, approximately 1 foot across the bottom of these. These are 33 inches long. So 33 minus 12 is your 121, 10.5 inches per side up, which is about right. But I think I'm going to heat these up to take these sort of shipping bends out of them, and then make a mark and make a nice crisp, almost right angle bend. There's one. Dig out the old geometry set from school. I didn't get much use out of it back then. And theoretically should have about a foot. Perfect. Ooh, that's a little warm. Just going to run these under cold water to sort of set them. Okay, nice crisp corners. See how this works. Yeah, good. I might drill a hole through here, or heat a hole through, and then use a pop rivet and a washer or some kind of fastener just to hold it in place. But that sort of stiffens up the sides quite a bit. Should help. Okay, I'll get the other one done and I won't bore you with the details. So heating those up and bending them at right angles helps to hold the form much better for the bags. Okay, not really sure how well this is going to work, but I've just sort of got the camera hanging out the front of my coat. This is the first run on it. Just in the first level of pedal assist. There's level 2. Well, so far I'm happy with it. Anyhow, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.